What's up, everyone? It's Mike here from The Art of Guitar. I had a lot of questions about practice routines, especially on the website. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an entire practice routine, 30 plus minutes on the website. I'm going to practice along with you so that you could follow me note by note, chord by chord. Here, though, I'm just going to sort of go through it in a fast way and just tell you in general what to work on each day. And this is not something written in stone either. It could be flexible. You could practice different parts longer or shorter depending on where your skill level is. But I just wanted to give you a general outline because a lot of people aren't sure what to do when they sit down to practice. So if anything I say doesn't make sense today, for example, any terminology I use, you could always look it up. You can Google it. You can jump on the website and check it out. But don't worry if you don't know everything I'm talking about today. It's just a general idea, remember, so you could adapt it to what you do know. I'm going to be basing some of what I teach today, as far as practicing goes, from that first video I did called This Should Be Everyone's First Guitar Lesson. So be sure to check that out before you go on to the practice routine today. First thing you want to do is make sure you're in tune. I don't like to spend a lot of time teaching tuning because I could take a long time if you do all the different ways of doing it. So either use a clip-on, I have one right here, toss it on, tune up, or you could use an app. There are several ways to tune these days, which is nice. So just make sure you're in tune before you get started because you want your ear to be able to hear the correct things as you're practicing. All right, I always start off, because I live in Minnesota, so it can get pretty cold and my hands are freezing sometimes and I don't want to just jump into intense practicing. So keep in mind, this is level 1 stuff as well, so it's not going to be too difficult anyway, but you do want to start off by getting your blood flowing a little bit. So go ahead and just start by playing a few of the spider exercises, but play them up high on the higher frets. Don't go down to the 1st fret. It's too big of a stretch to start off that way. So maybe we'll start at the 7th fret. And all I want you to do is just go ahead and play each finger one at a time. Real light. Don't press down hard. You should never do that anyway. See how my fingers are kind of moving like a wave? Eventually that'll happen for you. Okay, so remember, I'm not here to teach you all these techniques, so it might feel like I'm rushing through them. It's really just here to put it in a certain order for you to practice. Once you've done a little bit of the light spider exercise, go ahead and just do some open chords. So maybe you only know 3 chords, E, A, and D, for example. That's just fine. Just play them a little bit. What I want you to do is, instead of just the spider idea where the one finger at a time is happening, I want you to go where you're grouping your fingers together. So for example, the E major open chord has 3 fingers grouped together. You're sort of calibrating yourself at this point too. You're getting your fingers to feel the different strings and the different pressures that are needed. All right, after you do that for a few minutes, go ahead and just shake out your hands a bit. Do a little stretching now because you don't want to stretch too early because your hands might be cold. Once the blood gets flowing, then you could do all the hand exercise, the finger yoga that we like to do on the site. Also, the leg stretches where you do the splits on your legs like that. It looks funny, but it's very effective. Don't do it too hard. And that just opens your hand up a little bit. So does doing stuff like this. So I'll do about a minute of stretches. And then once I'm done with stretching, I can do the spider exercise down low with no problem. I can also do bar chords, I can do power chords. Everything seems to be playable once I do these stretches. Now that our hands are opened up a little bit more and you're warmed up, go ahead and try the spider exercise on the bigger frets. I know a lot of people ask, well, can I start to do the crazy spider exercises, the staggered ones? But I would say not really at this point because this whole routine is based off of the first level of the website, and we haven't gotten to the weird spider exercises till level 2. So we'll keep it simple for today. All right, it's time to get our brains involved a little bit more, a little more thinking happening. So let's go ahead and review all our open chords that we should know. After the first level of the website, you should know this: the caged system. Spell caged and just play the corresponding chords. Kind of makes it easy, right? So C, A, G, E, and D. That's forms 1 through 5. So C is the first form, A is the second form, and so on. It's a great way to remember things, caged. Then review the minor versions of any of those that you know. See, we don't know the C minor yet, but we know the A minor, so let's go there. We also know the E minor. It's a nice little switch there. And we know the D minor by now. If you don't know those, like I said, you could always look it up. All right, let's do the 7th chords. C7, A7, G7, Always sounds like the Beatles to me. E7 and D7. Review those, strum them a few times, just get them to sound nice and open and clear, and then we can move on. So we covered the major, the minor, and the seventh chords that we should know up to this point in open position. Now let's do the bonus chords. So you should know some sort of an F chord, whether it's a small one or a bigger one. Just know one form of F somewhere. Okay, then let's go ahead and we'll do the C add 9. Have to teach that chord early just because it's in so many beginner songs. And then B7 is another one that you want to make sure you know. All right, now's a good time to practice power chords. In level 1, we mostly do open power chords. So for example, open E string. On the next string, we fret to the second fret, and we get an E power chord. If you move it over, you get A power chord, and then D power chord. It's a good time to practice those and all the variations that we do on the site, where we do like, always sounds like Sesame Street to me. But that's another good way to warm up your fingers. You notice how the spider exercise is coming back to help us out. If you're already able to do the open ones, you can also move to the movable power chords, totally fine. And this is a good time to practice very low power chords because now your hand's warmed up. Just kidding. And then you could also start to do the double power chords where your pinky comes down. And that just utilizes more fingers. It's better for you in the long run because it easily converts to bar chords in the future. All right, guys, it's time to whip out the thing that a lot of people dread, the metronome. So we're going to use that a little bit. We're not going to be a slave to it. Some people always practice just to the metronome and they get kind of robotic. So I'd rather have you do a little bit of metronome work, but also put it away and rely on your own rhythm at times. Now that we're in the strumming portion, what I want you to do is I want you to fret your favorite open chord. Let's just go to E major because I taught that in the first video entitled This Should Be Everyone's First Guitar Lesson. If you've seen that, you should know the E major open chord. And we're just going to strum it 4 downstrokes. We're going to keep it real basic. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, and so on. 2. A lot of people think they should be switching chords right now. Don't do that. We're just trying to get our strumming hand in business here. Then you can add a click if you want to. So I'm just going to use a metronome app set at 80 beats per minute. And I just want to get my timing calibrated a little bit. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Just follow the click. 1, 2, 3, 4. You could tap your foot to each click too if you want to, but that could be a little too much for people because it's 3 things going on at once. So make sure you only do it when you're comfortable playing just with a click first. Now we could start to try to do different strums. I want you to do at least 4. So the next one that we teach on the site is the down, 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 up, down strum. So it'll sound like this without the click. Great strum. Let's try it with a click. Ready? 2, 3, go. Down, 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 up, down, down, down. And the other 2 strums that we teach are down, down, up, down, down, up. And then the final one, which is my favorite, down, down, up, down, which I used to call the John Mellencamp strum, but now I call it the Bob Seger strum. Sounds like night moves. Now it's time to switch chords while strumming. So let's go back to the most basic idea of strumming where we just strum once per chord and we're going to count to 4. This is a system I like to use to build up your ability to switch chords. And we're going to play the E first. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time we get to the next one, I want you to be on the next chord, which let's just do A major. 2, 3, 4. Come back to E. 1, 2, 3, and so on. We just keep going back and forth. Then when you get decent at that, do twice for each chord. So go 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time you have to switch, by the time you get to the 1. And because now we're doing 2 strums, you have 1 less second to switch. And then you do 3 and then all 4. And before you know it, you're doing 4 strums without any time to switch at all. And you can do it smoothly, which is nice. Do that with a few chords, add a 3rd chord maybe, and then eventually go to all like 4 chords progression, which should be nice. So let's say you only know E, A, D, and G, for example. Just do those in a circle. Just do 4 E's, 4 A's, 4 D's, switch to G. By the way, you're going to learn really cool ways of switching in the future. seems to like morph to each chord. So you're not going to have those strange awkward gaps between your chords. So let's just work on switching chords using different strum patterns and you should be set. Okay, the last part of chord practice people don't like very much. It's kind of difficult at first. I want you to take a chord, let's just do the D chord, the good old triangle shaped chord, and I want you to play each string one at a time. Just use downstrokes for now. Then if you want to, you could go back and forth. Sounds like an REM song, doesn't it? So this is called arpeggiating. We're just playing one note at a time, but keeping the fretting hand static where it is. This is going to teach you if you have any issues with a chord, because if you have something wrong, you're going to hear, which is very common, so don't feel bad if that's happening right now. That's just going to teach you to make those micro adjustments to make everything clean in the future. And go ahead and just arpeggiate any chord that you know. For example, A major, E major, G major, and so on. Don't forget the minor chords. Just make sure you play each one like that. Eventually you could put it into rhythm and do stuff like with alternate picking. Okay, more thinking now. Remember, you have to know the names of your strings, so take a little bit of time to review that. A lot of people do the Eddie 8 Dynamite Good by Eddie, but there are a lot of variations that I found out from the comment section of the last video. Some are hilarious. So anyways, just get to know them. It's okay if you learn them this direction. Some people take issue with that. If you want to learn it this direction from the first string to the sixth string, that's fine too. Just come up with a way. Sometimes a mnemonic device helps a lot. Just like I said, Eddie 8 Dynamite and whatever. And now the next thing to do after that is to take the strings, and I want you to start with the open string and name it. So E, for example. F, G. Open B, C, D. Open G, A. Open D, E, and F. Open A, B, C. Open E, F, G. That could take a while if you're not used to naming your notes. Just make sure you do a little bit each day just to get your brain familiar with it. You could look up a lot of diagrams online to find out what the notes are. From there, what we're going to do is we're actually going to play a scale out of all this. So what I want you to practice, because it's good to get into scales as soon as possible. The spider is good, but it's really just sequential notes, whereas the scales have more of a musical quality to them, and they're what you're going to be using in the future to improvise with. So let's go ahead and go to the 5th string, 3rd fret, C. And all we're going to do is we're going to climb up using only the natural notes. So we're going to go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So I like to send people off from the first level of our website, being able to play an entire diatonic scale from C to C in open position at least. So let's go C, open D, E, F, open G, A, open B, C. Let's practice that again. Backwards as well. And yes, it is beneficial as well to play it on one string. For example, you could go. It's a great way to see the whole steps and half steps eventually, but right now we're still just getting to know this open position of the guitar. Okay, we start there so that we could do variations of it. So if you want to and you have the knowledge, you could turn that into a C major pentatonic. Remember that always sounds like My Girl? To me it does. And then eventually you could start to do any scale you want in this position. You could start to do pentatonic in like minor pentatonic. There's a lot you could do from there, but start off, be at least able to do the C diatonic major scale. Okay, the last two parts of practice are a little more free, a little more fun. Now we're going to do some sort of song, progression, riff practice. So let's say you're working on a song that just goes from G to C add 9 back and forth. Poison's Every Rose Has Its Thorn is that for the most part. There are other chords, but a huge part of it are just those two chords. Pick a strum that you want to do. So let's just go like this, for example. That's just one example. Switch to C add 9. Back and forth. You can add the click here. 2, 3, 4. So you're practicing a Poison song right there. And don't forget that riffs exist. So you could look up some tab if you want to. There are a lot of classic riffs that you could play that are great for practicing. I have a couple videos on that on YouTube too. Here's an example. If you were to go, there's Pretty Woman, right? It's a great riff just to have a circular thing to practice because it keeps going and going. I learned so much about guitar just by playing riffs that I can't forget to tell you to play these as often as you can. Great thing to practice. The final part of practicing is sort of the winding down period, but it's very, very important. So I guess I could say it's last but not least. That's where you could become a little more creative. A lot of people are very Spock-like when they learn guitar. They think everything has to be so formal and perfect, and then they go on and they think of guitar as this real strict thing. But at the end of practicing, what I like people to do is just to be a little bit more creative. Choose a few chords that you think sound good and just start to do whatever you want with them. Play them in different ways, try to experiment a little bit, or even choose some single notes. I don't care if you play it all on one string. Just try to figure things out, whether it's something you hear in your mind or something you've heard before. When I first started guitar, I remember picking it up and it was completely out of tune, so I had no real strict reference points. But I wanted to figure out the song So Happy Together by the Turtles. And it wasn't because it was the hot song of the time. This was way before my time, but my dad was playing the record and I just kept hearing this. So I figured it out just with one finger. I went, probably no pick either. See, just with the 3 notes, I was able to pull that out. Of course, it took me a while to find the notes, and then I, forgot what I did immediately afterwards. But I didn't know it then, but I was training my ear already to figure out, okay, this is higher, this is lower. And then things like Mary Had a Little Lamb, I would just go like, no, that's not right. There we go. There it is. Just little games like that to start to develop your ear. Think of it as a fun, creative time, experimental time for yourself. And then when you put the guitar down, you're going to leave not feeling like you just did a bunch of algebra or something. You're going to think of it more like, oh, that was pretty fun because the last thing you did was actually kind of entertaining and interesting. So to summarize everything, you pick up the guitar, you sit down, hopefully you still have the good posture that we teach on the website. You don't want to hurt your back doing all this every day. We lightly warm up to get the blood flowing. Then we stretch to get the fingers sort of open, your hands feeling more open and less tight. And then we start to do the more intense spider exercise. We move on to chord shapes, a little bit of knowledge involved with it. We start to do strumming and rhythm. We add the metronome to it. We start to do more detailed work like power chords. And we also start to do picking scales and individual strings, which can be difficult. When we started to arpeggiate those chords, it got a little tough, I bet. So you want to make sure that you have those details down. It's the detailing work. And then from there, we moved on to playing songs and having some fun with chord progressions and riffs. And then eventually we worked our way to being creative and just sort of having fun, being free with the instrument. All right, everyone, we'll meet you over at the website if you want the full version of this practice routine. But for now, that should give you a good idea of what to do each day. And remember, you can extend it to an hour, 2 hours, 8 hours, whatever you want to do, and for whatever benefit you're looking for and how much patience and time you have to commit to it. All right, everyone, hopefully that was educational and entertaining. We'll catch you soon. Okay, bye.